there are some of these concepts that are Western. To have art be such a separate thing from life, I don't know that that's a conceptual part of the Wampanoag worldview. Like, oh, this is a different thing that you do that's called art. I think a lot of my art is folk art that comes from Wampanoag traditions. We see beauty in the red of the clay and the soil. We see beauty in the feathers of a bird. As a young person, I was often, excluded and oppressed by the world around me in viewing the world differently from many of my Western counterparts in this Western world that I'm forced to live within. Fundamental part of it is to put your name on a wall and make a piece of art out of a name that says, I exist, I'm here. Cultural arts are dismissed as not meeting some criteria of fine art or modern art in the eyes of so many people. It's always a fight to maintain what little we have left and to be able to hold on to what we have. All right, kui kwasan nataswis Hartman nutamas Mashpee nin Mashpee Wampanoag ka natayam art. Hello, my name's Hartman. I'm from Mashpee. I'm Mashpee Wampanoag, and I make art. I do a lot of different kinds of art, whether it's wampum or linocuts or screen printing or puppet making or wood carving or painting or graffiti and letter work, calligraphy, a lot of different stuff. But I guess I can wrap it all under the umbrella of folk art, because all of the art that I do is some form of art that's done generally for community audience rather than for an elite audience, and tends to be something that speaks to the community that I'm in and involved in. And
what did you say at the start?
I translated it right afterwards. Hello, my name is Hartman.
Oh, that was that was okay. Okay.
Yeah, I just realized I didn't know the word for art in Wampanoag, which I don't know that we have a word for art. There are some of these concepts that are Western. So, okay. To have art be such a separate thing from life, I don't know that that's a conceptual part of the Wampanoag worldview. Like, oh, this is a different thing that you do that's called art. We don't have a word for wilderness either.
Because you are part of it.
The world is... nature. There isn't a word for nature. It's all nature. We're nature ourselves. I'm wondering if we might, all of a sudden I hit that point in my brain. Wait, I wonder if we might have the same sense when we deal with art, because I don't know a word for art.
Can you? Well, obviously, because you're a Wampanoag, I'm going to ask this. Can you talk about how your culture has influenced your work?
Have grown up as a Wampanoag person all my life, and there are certain different outlooks and worldviews that shape how we see the world and our understanding of our place in it as human beings. But it hasn't influenced all of my art directly, but I think a lot of my art is folk art that comes from Wampanoag traditions, the wampum making, the wood carving, the feather work that I do, the copper work that I do is all based on traditional styles and aesthetics of Wampanoag cultural use. And also the objects that I make themselves are oftentimes have a cultural use. If I make a copper roach spreader for my headpiece, it has a cultural use and a cultural function. If I make a tube bead bracelet. There's a cultural function to that piece that I'm making, as well as the aesthetics that maybe everybody can appreciate and enjoy, but beyond the aesthetics, there's the cultural use of the object, the storytelling element of what's there.
Can you talk about like how art plays a role in your culture?
One of the worldview elements of Wampanoag culture is that we are supposed to create beauty, as we are the creations of the Creator, and we have been given the power to create with our hands, with our bodies. Our responsibility in this world, one of the things that we're supposed to do, our core mission is to create beauty, to emulate the Creator's works and our own works. And we look at the Creator's works around us and we see beauty in the world. We see beauty in the sunset. We see beauty in the blooming of the trees. We see beauty in the red of the clay in the soil. We see beauty in the feathers of a bird, or all of the different things that the Creator has made. And when we look at the Creator's works and the beauty of the Creator's works, and we're told that we're supposed to emulate the Creator and their creations and our own creations, that we're supposed to make a beautiful world for ourselves and for all those others that we share it with. That means that when we move our bodies and we're thankful for the bodies that we have, we create dance, or when we use our voices and we create songs, we create beauty. And when we use our hands to create things, a simple thing like a spoon to eat with, you should make it beautiful, because you have a choice in life. When you make something, when you create something, you can create it with beauty, or you can create it without beauty. And it's as simple as that. And if you have the choice to make something beautiful, why wouldn't you choose to make it beautiful? That's our responsibility here as human beings in this world. That's the world that we've been given, and our responsibility to uphold that world and take care of that world is to create beauty within it.
Have you ever faced any bias in this Western society, and have you ever like used art to attempt to like resist?
As a young person, I was often, excluded and oppressed by the world around me, in viewing the world differently from many of my Western counterparts in this Western world that I'm forced to live within. And one of the ways I found that came out, especially in my younger age, was graffiti, which is a very rebellious art form. It's one that goes in the face of law enforcement and social norms at the time. It's becoming more socially accepted now, but I found as I engaged with people in the community, the graffiti art community, is that one of the common threads that I can find amongst everybody who's engaged in this art is that there came a point when they felt voiceless, unseen, unheard, whether in the structure of the home or society at large, that pushed them into the direction of creating graffiti art. And a lot of it is very fundamental. Part of it is to put your name on a wall and make a piece of art out of a name that says, I exist, I'm here. And that fundamental declaration of existence and to be seen, to demand to be seen without permission or acceptance is, I think, one of the more rebellious arts that I've engaged in. So that's, I think, one of, the most rebellious arts, and in the face of oppression and exclusion, the most obvious connection. But there are other ways in creating arts, even traditional arts, that I've found resistance and pushback in the creation of arts, whether or not there's a consideration of some of my work to be considered actual art by established art world that might separate traditional arts or folk arts or indigenous arts from fine art or modern art, and yet there are very many aspects of fine art and modern art that are incorporated into the work that I do, even the traditional work that I do. When I engage with modern motifs or design elements into traditional pieces, that's an overlap of the two, bringing a modernity into traditional art, or to simply look at the skill sets that are involved in creating a war club or a tomahawk, to cut and carve and shape the wood, and the detailed etchings, or the inlay work of the shell, or the different materials used, the copper and the feather work, really detail-oriented work, especially feather work and quill work. It absolutely qualifies for fine art if you want to step back and approach it without bias, and yet so much of cultural arts are dismissed as not meeting some criteria of fine art or modern art in the eyes of so many people. I'm thankful that there's folks and people who have opened up space to view so many of the arts that I engage in differently and accept them as fine art or modern art, because I'm a modern living person creating things in this world today, and bring a lot of skill sets that I've learned over years and years and decades to work onto a piece and perfect it and have it be just so.
I'm not sure if I'm correct, but I have previously read that certain indigenous groups involve art in like cultural practice. So like the reading says they kind of witness art as a process, like a ritual, more than the actual like object. The one I read about was it's called sand painting. They said it's more about like what's happening during the ritual instead of like the after all outcome. But the Western world mostly views art as like a object that is done for display. So absolutely. I would like to know some of the relationships between the two in your point of view.
Well, in speaking to sand painting in particular, it's not an art that I engage in. It's a Navajo tradition or Dene tradition, and I definitely appreciate what they do with it. And part of that work is to appreciate and engage with the impermanence of it, the lack of permanence of the art itself. So, for Wampanoag folks and folks in the East here, and many other Native folks throughout the Americas, there is a sense that we ourselves as human beings have a time here in this world, and a time is not forever, it's finite. And the things that we create are also have a time in this world. And I've worked with museums a lot and engaged with museums who have collections of ancient artifacts, or even, in my opinion, much worse, looted grave goods that have been taken from what is supposed to be buried and sent to the other world with the ancestors. And they take these pieces out and they display them as, pieces of art, artifacts, relics, or whatever. And they want to hold them in such a way that, they can't be touched. I had to put plastic and rubber gloves on in so many of the museums to touch these objects that are supposed to be used. They're supposed to be used and have a life. And just like anything that has a life, they have the point when they're created, they serve the purpose while they live, and then they come to the end of their useful existence and they go back to the essence that they come from. The end of that cycle. It's as important as the beginning of the cycle that things have that end, that everything here, their time is finite. Nothing is infinite. Nothing is all expanses except for the Creator itself. So to be able to accept that baskets are used until they rot, that a carpet is walked on and not hung on a wall, that a pipe is smoked through and held in your hands, not to put rubber gloves on it or to keep it from being exposed to the acids in your finger or the resin of the tobacco or the mold spores that might come from touching the dirt. If an object can't serve its purpose and its function, then it's really not being respected in our cultural worldview. When we look at how these objects are treated, they're supposed to serve a function and be useful and be used and come to the day where their usefulness reaches its end and their existence reaches an end. We all have a time here in this world and a time when we go back.
What do you think about America's efforts in the restoration of Indigenous people?
Can
I ask about these?
America's efforts for restoration, huh? It's trying to really think about. What I see of America's efforts is a continued erosion of our rights, our existence, our land base, our cultures, our languages, our tribal governances, our tribal jurisdictional authority, our right to exist as Indigenous people. We see that this is eroded continuously. It's always a fight to maintain what little we have left and to be able to hold on to what we have and not lose more and more. This is a constant struggle, and it's been a constant struggle for the hundreds of years that the folks who've colonized this land have been here, and it still continues today.
Do you express anger in your work?
Oh yeah. So we have the piece over here with the nun choking the child. And that piece in particular is about the boarding schools. The boarding schools for Native children were taken from, I think, the 1870s, 1880s or so, up and through the 1960s in the United States and the 1980s up in Canada, and forcefully assimilated through extreme amounts of violence at the hands of those who were supposed to be caring for those children. Children were beaten for speaking their native language or singing their songs. They were forced to have their hair cut, forced to adopt Western clothing styles, Western names oftentimes as well. There were children that were raped, children that were murdered, for who they were. And this was done in large part in conjunction with the churches, the Anglican Church, the Evangelical Church, the Baptist Church, the Mormon Church, so many churches that took on the contracting work or the efforts to actually run these boarding schools. But yeah, half of the half of the children who went to these schools died, did not come home. 50% mortality rate is absolutely
Wow.
crazy to think of that. And that's why throughout Canada and somewhat in the United States, there's an effort to find the burial grounds at these boarding school locations and exhume the bodies of the children that were killed there and return them to the places that they came from, because oftentimes kids were shipped hundreds of miles away to be far away from their families so that they wouldn't be able to escape and go back home. And so that's, a particularly angry piece there, but it's not the only piece that I think expresses anger. Politics and the treatment of human beings, and not just human beings, but the other relatives that we live with here in the world. The bees, the cows, the pigs that get treated so bad, are also expressed in my works. So, yeah, that's a part of what comes out in the work that I do.